Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto's rescue of Tayuya led to love in Konoha? Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Oh, my head. Tayuya came to, having been knocked unconscious earlier. Her initial grogginess wore off in seconds, and then pain set in. My legs. She was at an angle, propped up by some of the trees in this decapitated forest, and her legs felt like they were on fire. For good reason. Another tree, thicker than she was tall, had landed across her thighs, and she was trapped. If that fat-ass Jirobo was here, hell, if any of the others were here, they'd be able to get me out. We probably succeeded, so Orochimaru would let me off the hook, maybe. She griped to herself. While she didn't enjoy that, maybe, it was the best hope that she had to go on. She was one of his elite guards, and that was worth something, though their statuses, elite, didn't mean much when Orochimaru's continued experiments produced stronger mutations. Given how young those subjects were, it was likely that the Sound Four would outlive their usefulness. Unfortunately for Orochimaru, though, he hadn't been able to ensure that those mutated children were able to stay sane. For better or worse, with their basic curse seals, she and the others were the most capable soldiers on Orochimaru's side. Kabuto was the only exception to that rule. Thinking of that man sent shivers down her spine. He was a brilliant medic, but a little too brilliant. Kabuto was Orochimaru's right-hand man and apprentice. Kimimaro before his illness, and Sasuke now, they were just spare bodies to him, vessels that he could use to attain his goals. He hadn't deigned to share those goals with Tayuya, or any of the other members of the Sound Four. Not that she was complaining, that would have been another piece of information that a captor could torture out of her. Of course, at this point, capture was looking like her best option. Orochimaru was known for tying up loose ends in a very painful way, and Konoha had comfortable prisons, as far as prisons went. Better than Orochimaru's stone walls and steel bars, no doubt. Supposedly, they were like staying in a shitty one-star motel, minus the roaches. Then again, the man who'd told her that wasn't exactly the most mentally put together in the world. Well, the others are probably dead. Even Kimimaro's running on borrowed time. On the one hand, the pain in her legs was excruciating. On the other hand, the fact that she could still feel them meant that they were still repairable. Time was working against her, and she knew that. An explosion in the distance caught her attention, and as a blur passed by her right side, she shouted for help. What have we here? A giant, white-haired man appeared in her vision. He had to be at least 6 feet tall, and looked like he could withstand a mountain collapsing on him. You're working for my old teammate, huh? Well, it'd leave a really bad taste in my mouth to just leave you here to die. Why don't you come with me? I know someone who'll be able to fix those legs of yours. Then, you and I can have a nice, long talk. He placed one hand toward the bottom of the log, casually flipping it to stand on one end. How the did you? Anything is possible when you're the great Jiraiya. He laughed. Now, will you come with me or not? I won't force you, but I know how Orochimaru operates. I've had enough spies die to learn what happens when someone is in your position. The decision didn't take long. I'm coming, she huffed, holding out an arm for the Sannin to grab. Excellent. He picked her up, carrying her on his back, and resumed traveling. Now, to go pick up that bumbling student of mine and his wayward friend, if we can. Lightning had burnt Naruto's jacket to a crisp, blood running down his chest from a hole on either side. Shrugging off the destroyed vestment that Konoha's populace had come to know as the infamous Orange Nightmare, his upper body was on display for the world to see. That's a lot of scars, Naruto. Were those from Haku? Sasuke, his best friend and current enemy, momentarily stopped their fight in wonder. What the hell had happened to Naruto? His torso was riddled with jagged lines, deep gouges, and more than a few imprints that looked like acid or burned scars. Before Sasuke's eyes, the two craters he'd put in Naruto's chest stopped bleeding and began to heal over. No. These were from the villagers. They're old, they're faded, but they're from before I came to the academy. Normally, I put a physical henge on when I'm going to show skin to the world, makes it impossible to feel them. Hadn't thought I'd be doing it today, though, and I'd rather save the chakra. They did that to you. And you never fought back. What the hell is wrong with you? They probably would have killed me if they thought it could be done, but I heal a little too fast for them to keep up, and I'll be honest, I deserved it. My legs are a lot worse off, because there's no vital organs. So, wait, you were subject to mob judgment, you got scarred beyond your ability to heal yourself, and you're trying to convince me to come back to Konoha. Well, when you put it like that, it does make you sound kind of silly. Might just be the 2 years I have on you, though. I didn't get held back twice to get outsmarted by someone younger than me. Except Shikamaru, that dude's got like 16 eggs in his dozen. Bizarre. At least I'm honest about being short 1 or 2. Yeah, Mr. Super Duper Senior. You're the only one that's ever happened to, you know that. That makes me feel bad, Sasuke. At least when we were punching each other you weren't insulting me. Come back home with me, please. You know why I can't, Naruto. No amount of pity for you is going to make me. I have to kill my brother, I have to avenge my clan. Killing the person most important to me is how to evolve the Sharingan into its Mangekyo form, and that's you. Touching as that is, you're lying. Itachi is more important to you than I am, or else you wouldn't still be going on this quest for vengeance. If I mattered more, if Sakura or Kakashi mattered more, if anyone in Konoha mattered more, then it would have been enough for you to give up. It would have been enough for you to stay with us. And if I really am that important, if any of us are that important, then you're not the one in control of your actions. That damn seal is. That announcement hit Sasuke like a ton of bricks. For someone who was supposed to be an idiot, stupid enough to have failed to graduate from what amounted to civilian middle school twice, it made an unfortunate amount of sense. Hate and anger were just as much about passion as romance and friendship, which meant either his hate for Itachi outweighed the strength of his brotherhood with Naruto, or Orochimaru's seal was making him do something that he would otherwise never have done. Choose who you care about more, Sasuke. Itachi, or the village. If you turn around and walk away right now, you'll be just like him. If you come back with me, it all gets blown off as a kidnapping. Only Team 7 will know the truth unless Sakura decides to open her mouth. You don't have to become Itachi to beat him. Fine. Sasuke finally said. But in exchange, you're going to help me train to kill him. Whatever you say, pal. Naruto. Sasuke. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said. I see you were successful, Naruto, and you too, Sasuke, for resisting the seal. Kakashi. A newcomer said. It was Jiraiya, carrying a girl on his back. Are you telling me that you willingly left a cursed seal rampant, when it has the ability to manipulate a person's thoughts, because you wanted to train Sasuke without my interference? His tone was dark. I won't deny that I'm glad it gave me the freedom to teach Naruto, but that's still a very severe lapse in judgment. I didn't know the full extent of its power over Sasuke. It was an honest mistake, Jiraiya. You know me better than to insinuate I would sabotage the growth of my student. She's a member of the Sound Four. Naruto pointed to the girl on Jiraiya's back, interrupting the older ninja. She fought Shikamaru. Her name is Kitamon no Tayuya. Sasuke added. One of Orochimaru's personal guards. I'm guessing the other three are dead. Yeah, not in ways I want to describe, either. Jiraiya confirmed. Now, we should get out of here, and I'm going to take a look at those seals when we get back to Konoha. Yours and hers. There was no room for argument, and the four men took off running. All of them dead, and no sign of Sasuke. Yes, Orochimaru-sama. Unfortunately, it seems that Naruto was able to overpower the seal by leveraging his friendship with Sasuke. I see. Well, then, failure is failure, I suppose, but more is learned from failure than success. Orochimaru grimaced, despite those hopeful words. In the main chamber of his torch-lit base, he sat upon the basilisk throne and thought. The Byahebe's hands were bridged in front of him, elbows resting on the arms of his chair. Now I know that I need to modify the seals further in the future. Disobedience is a terrible crime, especially to refuse the strength of one of the Sannin. It's almost like he was ungrateful for the gift I showed him. A grass snake coiled around his arm, sliding around the appendage in order to keep the bandages on tightly. Well, let's move on. There's no use in dwelling over what could have been, after all. The white snake was coiled, and waiting to strike again. Chunin, Uzumaki Naruto and Nara Shikamaru. Genin, Inazuka Kiba, Hyuga Neji, Akamichi Choji. Congratulations. The Godime Hokage, Tsunade, said, addressing most of the people in the room. Thanks to you, not only have Orochimaru's personal guard been dealt with, but you kept Sasuke Uchiha from being kidnapped by Otogakure. The village owes you a debt it can't repay. All I can offer are standard mission rewards, and my own personal thanks. A mission is a mission. You don't owe us anything, Obaa-chan. Naruto grinned cheekily, deftly ducking the book that she threw at him. Oh, come on, I was respectful. Mostly. Naruto. Shikamaru drawled, his ponytail waving as he shook his head. You never learn, do you? Nah, you're the smart one, Shika. I just hit stuff. And get hit by stuff, if those marks are any indication. The hell happened to you? Kiba said, edging closer. Did you cross some Ronin trying to practice his 1,000 cuts technique? Quote. I'd rather not talk about it. Let's get back to the topic at hand. Naruto's gaze shifted out the window, and the gathered people took that cue to let the matter drop. Jiraiya is dealing with Sasuke and the retrieved Oto Kunoichi. Tsunade said, her voice calm enough to disguise the rage she felt at the realization of what had happened to Naruto in his childhood. She and Jiraiya never should have left the boy alone in Konoha. Her sensei had meant well, but Hiruzen Sarutobi had held the position of Hokage before her. He was never going to be there, at any specific time, for one child in a village of thousands, even if most of them weren't shinobi clans. Hell, having a child around would have made either one of them 10 times more stable than they had been, but there was no point in thinking about the past. Dismissed, except for Naruto. The younger ninja, and Kakashi, left the room quickly. Why me? You and I are going to go see Jiraiya and that girl, Tayuya. Follow me. The hospital room was secluded, almost elusive, and for good reason. There was a 7-layered genjutsu shrouding the root, which was one of Naruto's weakest abilities. Once they were inside the room, however, the illusion dissipated and full consciousness returned to his mind. Are you healed? Tsunade asked the bedridden redhead. Yeah. Tayuya kept her eyes closed. Thanks. It's not an issue. The blonde woman said. However, that does mean that you won't be able to stay in the hospital after tomorrow morning's discharge comes through. What are you going to do? That's my question. By all rights, I should be dead. To Orochimaru, I probably am dead. If I go back there, it'll just mean torture until I'm too used to the pain to scream anymore. Kabuto is good at making people scream. And you. I'm expecting an interrogation session, and a goddamn execution. That's what anyone else would do to an enemy they'd captured. Shit. It's what I would do to me. You swear a lot, you know that. Naruto observed. Shut it. Piss for brains. It's a goddamn defense mechanism. Tayuya bit back. Hey. Just because my hair is yellow. Yellow as piss, you Nimrod. The redhead cut Naruto off as she insulted him. Tsunade laughed. Oba-chan. Naruto asked. She's just saying all the things I can't bring myself to, since I'm Hokage. I like her. The platinum blonde smirked. It took Tayuya very little time to piece the puzzle together. Tsunade. Sanin no Tsunade, the Hokage. Yeah, she's. You disrespect her like that, piss brain. Shit, you're dumber than I thought. Hey, well, I have an idea now. Tsunade spoke up, in a tone Naruto knew as the, I'm not going to like what she says voice. As a show of good faith, I'm willing to let you live freely in the village, the only catch is that you have to live under the supervision of one of my shinobi. Naruto had a distinct fear of the words that he knew would follow. In the back of his mind, he could hear a dark laugh rattling amid sewage. Stupid fox, mocking him from a place he couldn't fight it. Naruto is unquestionably loyal, and if he tries anything perverted then you have my full permission to act without discretion. No strings. That having been said, you won't be allowed to go anywhere without him shadowing you, and you'll have to follow him wherever he goes. That all aside, I'm enjoying the way you say how I feel. By all means, please continue. Oba-chan, please tell me I'm getting paid for this. Oh, hell no. The Hokage was laughing as she walked out of the room. You're serving your village. Is my gratitude not payment enough? The door closed, Naruto still looking at it with one eyebrow twitching. She seems nice. A whole lot nicer than Orochimaru. He's that bad. Most of us serve him, or served, out of fear. You don't last long in Odo if you start thinking you're strong. Once you do, he starts using you for experiments, and I'm not gonna say another goddamn word about it, piss for brains. Can you call me anything else? Okay. Ass face. Quote. I guess I really was asking for it, huh? I wasn't gonna let that door close on me. How come you haven't opened your eyes? It's hard to sleep, so I was just trying to rest. There's still a lot of phantom pain in my legs. Besides, they told me not to ask about the scars. I figure that's easier if I just don't look at you. Well, Hokage's order was that we'll be living together, and you can't exactly do that blind. May as well get it over with. The look on her face, immediately, was one of horror and pity. Sasuke put those 2 holes in your chest, huh? Tore through along. My chakra is strong enough that it can heal me in seconds, but it's not medical chakra. Every injury I receive comes with a reminder to do better next time, but look at me, I never seem to learn. Better to leave out the 9-tailed denizen inside of his seal-bearing gut, he reasoned. There was no reason to give that information out so freely. Not that it would change the fact that most of those scars were brought on by the aforementioned 9-tailed demon, though 1 or 2 were self-inflicted. You really do have piss for brains, huh? Says the one who had a forest dropped on her. Not my fault. That bitch from Suna took out the whole thing in one goddamn attack. That was bullshit. Nah, you were just outdone. Her younger brother is even stronger, though, be glad you didn't fight him. He would have made sure you were dead. The Aikibi Jinchuriki. I heard he turned Kimimaro into a statue inside of his own little bone forest. Yeah, Gaara's strong. I kicked his ass a while back, though. Takes a demon to beat a demon, huh? How do you? Oh, please. Tayuya scoffed. First off, your seal was still active when I saw you, after you'd stopped fighting. Second, we all got briefed on potential fights that we might have to engage in. You were first on the list. Had that status, Kyuubi Jinchuriki, written in big, bold, red letters. Made the others want to take you out, made me want to let them kill themselves trying. That's fair. He couldn't refute the logic. Jinchuriki were known for being absurdly strong, though most of them had a certain niche where they were most powerful. The Aikibi was strongest in the desert, the Nibi was at a disadvantage in watery areas, and so on. The Kyuubi, however, was a jack of all trades in that regard. While it might lose to the other Biju in the terrain where they were strongest, the Kyuubi had no true weaknesses, and was never at a disadvantage. As the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, he was somewhat representative of the Kyuubi's strength, so it could be argued that anyone able to defeat him would be able to defeat any other Jinchuriki. It would probably make life annoying later down the road, but that future hadn't arrived yet, so there was no point in waiting around for it. Do you know my name, too? He asked her. Uzumaki Naruto. Those two words, his name, said without any malice in them. It didn't matter to her, apparently, that he was one special snowflake, as she would probably say. That was the nicest thing that anybody who didn't have to endure his presence had said, even with all the insults she'd given him. He didn't have to think hard in order to know that was a pathetic thing to be happy over. I tell you what, Tayuya. I'll stay the night here, make sure that you actually manage to rest. No funny business, I promise, no matter how funny a guy the first am. Whatever you say, piss brain. The following silence was peaceful, at least, and Tayuya was snoring within 20 minutes. This is where you live. She couldn't believe what she was looking at. You, as an active duty ninja with a big ass paycheck every time you complete a mission, live in the slums in a what is this, a whorehouse? Poor manners. If you believe the owner, not that I trust a word she says beyond, your rent is due next week, then this is what you'd refer to as a gentleman's club. Gentle, my ass. I know the kind of guys who show up to these places. Yeah, that's why she wanted a ninja living on the 3rd floor. First floor is the business floor in her office, second floor is living quarters for the girls whenever they need it, third floor is my room. Lady who runs it didn't give a shit who I was, all she wanted to know was whether I could stop fights or get rid of the more unruly customers without damaging the building. It helped her decision that I offered to repair the building and pay the girls for lost wages out of pocket in the event that I ever did manage to put a hole or 12 in there. Really? Piss brain. That's really nice of you. Who the are you, a saint? No, he said. I'm just an orphan who knows a little too well what it's like to not know where you'll be able to sleep tomorrow night, or where your food will come from. Most of those scars you saw weren't done to me by ninja. With that, they were at the door, and Naruto swung it open. It was before business hours, but the women inside were setting up for later tonight. That all changed when they saw him, however. Naru-chan. One particularly buxom woman nearly squealed, burying him in her cleavage and spinning him. No fair, Chi-Chi, you'll kill him before the rest of us can say hi. The blonde, who was turning blue in the face from lack of oxygen, managed to extricate himself. Hey, did I tell you? Mission success, he exclaimed with pride. I managed to drag that stupid kid's ass right back to the village. Naruto, aren't you a self-proclaimed, stupid kid, too? One of the other women asked him, laughing. Yeah, but I'm older, so he's dumber by virtue of age. Tayuya watched the scene unfold, comically, as Naruto seemed to put on a show that was completely different from the mostly serious persona she'd seen so far. Who's the girl, Naruto? One of them said, pointing back towards Tayuya. She's gonna be living with me, he said, clearly not having thought through the consequences. Did you hear that, girls? An older woman walked out from the back of the building, holding an old leather-bound book in one hand. This was the business owner. Our little fishcake has a girlfriend, time to give up on making him yours. She is not. I am not. Their dual proclamation was simultaneous, coming amid soft gasps of excitement and mock disappointment. Not helping your case, little fish. The owner said. If you didn't want her to be seen, you should have just gone to the top floor. I know you can jump that high, I've seen you do it. Yeah, that's because there's something you need to know. Technically, the fact that she's staying with me is a really big secret, so if anyone comes looking for her, or someone who looks like her, then she's not here, okay. I'm sorry for the trouble. Don't worry, Naru-chan. Chichi-Okawa-san will take care of your secret. The other brothel workers agreed after her. He smiled politely. Thanks. Now, Tayuya-chan, come with me. He grabbed her hand and pulled, the redhead stumbling as she followed along. Goddamn, piss for brains, my legs just healed. Do you want me back in the hospital again? The women all watched with smiles on their faces. They knew it would do the boy a world of good to keep more company, even if the only company to be found looked like she was the one person on earth who was louder than him. Think he'll be the same way once she manages to worm her way into his pants? That's rude, Kasumi, worried about how she might be getting special treatment now. Jealous, even. Shish, shut up. Wow, this is pretty big. Yeah, it's a lot nicer than some other places I've lived. Kitchen's on the left, bathroom to the right, bedroom is straight back and has another bathroom attached. Why is there a door coming out of the wall, though? Oh, that. Don't worry. It's a foot thick, made of chakra-proof metal, and it only unlocks from the inside. It's so I can get in without always having to go up the stairs. Wall walking is pretty easy once you've gotten the hang of it. That was good enough, Tayuya told herself. No possibility of attack meant that safety was relatively assured. Not paying much attention to her surroundings, she began to walk toward the bedroom. You hungry? He offered, walking over to the fridge. When no response was given, he turned around and saw her go into his bedroom. Following after her, he watched her flop down on the bed. Why are you so goddamn nice? She asked, shocking him a little bit. You should hate this whole village. You should hate me. Why the hell don't you? I'd rather see the good in people. He laid down next to her on the bed, looking up at his ceiling. Clean, not leaking, no moldy patches. It was nice. I've been hurt a lot, but I'm a reaction, not an action. The people who gave me these scars weren't thinking clearly, they were blinded by grief. I don't like what it did to me, but I forgave them a long time ago. When the orphanage kicked me out, the Sandame tried to find reasoning to get the man in charge kicked out based on bias against me, but every orphanage in this village was overflowing after the Kyuubi attacked. They really just didn't have enough room. Besides, having that damn fox sealed off inside me has its advantages. I can miss 5 meals before I really get hungry, and my body temperature stays the same no matter what climate I'm in. It also overloads my chakra system to hell, so the only techniques I'm able to control well are the ones that expend enough chakra to exhaust most normal ninjas' reserves. Chakra's more dense, too, which makes all my attacks stronger. You're too good, piss brain. There's a line between being kind and letting other people take advantage of you. You're so far past that line, you looped back around just to shove it up your ass. Naruto did his best not to let the swearing bother him. So what do you want to do? I don't know, shithead. You're technically my prison guard, gilded as this jail may be. You're in charge. I'm no good at being in charge, though. Both my teachers say I'm too indecisive and hot-headed. That's bullshit, you can't be both of those. Just watch me for however long we're stuck like this, then you'll get it. I'm hungry. I've got some leftovers in the fridge. I was trying to ask if you wanted them before you came in here. Well, didn't hear you. That was nice of you, piss brain. Still, I wanted to see how you'd act when I did this. What? Lay down in a bed? He looked over to her. Yeah, we're gonna be sharing it, so I figured I should see how you'd react to me being in it. We're gonna do what now? It's your room, you're not sleeping on a couch or the floor. I ain't willing to either, so you're just gonna have to suck it up, because we're either gonna be sharing it like this. Without warning, she rolled on top of him, hands on either side of his head and one of her legs between his. Or like this. Your choice. His hand moved up to her shoulder, and with a flick of his wrist she was facing up at the ceiling, laying beside him again. You're nuts, piss brain, you know that. Oh, you have no idea. He laughed. Give me a minute, I'll go heat up some food. Come out when you're ready. The meal was simple, just chicken and vegetables with rice. Still, for someone who was used to poorly flavored gruel or meals that had most of the nutrition boiled out of them, it was fantastic. A knock on the inside door alerted them, and Naruto stood. I'll get it, you keep eating. Naruto opened the door, and found Jiraiya. Hey, Ero Sennin, what's up? Not much. I see you have a friend. The older man sighed inwardly, knowing it would probably be a long road to the point where Naruto referred to him with any sort of respect. Yeah, Obaa-chan's orders. I know, kid. Still, I'm here because I got permission from her to go on a training trip with you. Define, training trip, you pervert. I'm not going on a tour of the elemental nations to spy on women's hot springs. As fantastic as that idea you've just given me may be, I mean it the way it sounds. I'll be training you while we're on the move, it'll keep the Akatsuki off your back, and as a bonus, we may be able to destroy some of Orochimaru's old bases on the way. Might even learn something or another from them. You said what now? Tayuya stood, a stern look on her face. I said we'll be ransacking Orochimaru's bases on the. Jiraiya paused for a moment, his face lighting up in realization. Quote. I smell a loophole that Ero Sennin is about to leap through. You were one of his personal guards. He said, looking at Tayuya. You know where all of his bases are. When do we leave? She asked. I would say, right now, but that knucklehead, Jiraiya pointed to Naruto, would object. How about 3 days? How long will we be gone? Naruto was the one to ask the other most important question. 3 years, give or take. There's a lot you need to learn, and a lot that I may not be able to teach you very well. Hopefully, though, you'll be able to pony up and play in the big leagues. Kakashi, Tsunade and I won't be able to protect you forever, especially since you want to take the hat from her. And you. His focus shifted back to Tayuya. I see no reason to leave you out. Plus, I could see about finding a way to remove the seal that bastard put on you. Okay. Piss for brains, I take it back. You're not too nice. This whole damn village is too nice, and you're just the head of the pack. I don't know what to tell you. Naruto shot back. Blame my tragic backstory that lends itself toward making me a person that wants others to be happy. God, you're sappy. If I get killed because you made me go soft, I'm gonna come back to beat your shitty little ass to death with me. Well then, Tayuya-chan, I guess I'll just have to protect you. His sing-song voice was mocking. You little shit. Jiraiya smiled, almost content enough to close his eyes. It was like a repetition of the past, with a young Minato and Kushina standing in front of him. Thinking of them, however, immediately soured the scene before him. It was a reminder of his failure to them. Their names, right next to each other on the memorial stone, were a permanent monument to all of his sins. I just wanted to deliver the news. He said. I'll meet you by the east gate, in 3 days, at noon. I'll let Tsunade know you'll be coming with us, Tayuya. He turned and walked out, closing the door behind him. The east gate, that brought back memories for Naruto. The battle against Gaara, transformed in a full possession mode by the Aikibi. Defeating it had earned him his promotion to Chunin. Hell, anybody who could beat a Biju was worthy of Jonin status as far as threat level was concerned, but he wasn't going to complain. If nobody knew how dangerous he was, then nobody would ever expect to die at his hands. And, as it turned out, people were pretty good at dying when he was the one killing them. Gato had found that out firsthand. The despotic merchant arrived just a few minutes early, just close enough that Naruto's heightened senses, along with Kakashi and Zabuza's war-heightened ones, had been able to pick him out, and the army of mercenaries he'd brought with him had been a hard detail to miss. That was the day that gave the Kyuubi a level of respect for Naruto, when his battle against the Kurigakure Nukenin was abandoned at the revelation of Gato's betrayal. Change of plans, Kakashi had said. They're on our side now. Haku, the mission is dead. Time to cut our losses, and our employer. Naruto hadn't needed to be told twice. 3 steps of his demon miasma enhanced chakra bounding him forward so that he could crash headlong into the mercenaries' front ranks. That had been a good day. Hey, piss for brains. Tayuya's voice brought him back to the present. Did something feel off about him, right at the end? Sort of. He changes moods a lot when I'm around. Couldn't tell you why, though. It seemed like he got really sad, all of a sudden. Your guess is as good as mine. Leaving the mystery behind, they went back to their meal. Once the sun had set, after all had been said and done, Jiraiya had come to visit Tsunade in her office while nobody could possibly interrupt their conversation. I hate you. You and your goddamn loopholes. You know that, you perverted toad. Think about it, though. This gets Naruto out and about so that he can actually learn something about the world beyond the missions when you allow him outside these walls on your orders, and it keeps Tayuya from potentially falling into Danzo's hands. Because the possibility of Orochimaru retaking her is the lesser of 2 evils. Tsunade nearly shrieked, a titanium ball being crushed under her hand. Yes, actually. The look he gave her said that the question wasn't up for discussion, regardless of who technically outranked whom. Tsunade knew that if the chips were down, and it really came to blows, Jiraiya could wipe the floor with her. Years of dodging her attacks in their childhood training had made him fast. Still, disgruntled as she was, she allowed herself to move on. My informant told me that the Akatsuki won't start to move for another 3 years. That gives me a limited window of time to really teach him, whether it's about Fuinjutsu, his contract with the Toads, mastering the Biju inside of him, or even just general jutsu and physical training. He needs to learn it, and I'm the only one who can teach him. His arms crossed in front of his chest. The grim countenance he'd taken on was the same as Tsunade remembered it. This was the Jiraiya who wouldn't take no for an answer. This was the Jiraiya who had appeared on missions during the Second War, who had broken his back to stop a boulder from crushing her head, who had made himself bait so that she and Orochimaru could run for help and then broke hell loose because he didn't have to worry about protecting his weaker, faster, smarter comrades. If she tried to forbid him from doing this, he would disregard her authority and go behind her back. Jiraiya had stopped being afraid a long time ago. He didn't fear death, and he was no longer scared of losing anyone else close to him. Not since Minato and Kushina died, followed by Orochimaru's discovery and defection. He could easily go rogue, and she doubted that anyone in Konoha would be able to stop him or bring him back in if he did. There wasn't a doubt in her mind that he would go whether she allowed it or not. Tsunade. There was silence for a minute, and he tensed reflexively when she reached for a drawer at her desk, but he relaxed when it turned out to be nothing more than a large bottle of sake and her own personal drinking cup. Did it hurt you as much as it hurt me, watching them? You didn't spend time with Minato and Kushina. Not like I did. I was still around them, though. Even Orochimaru admitted that they were They were perfect for one another, and everybody knew it. They were 22, Tsunade. They had been married for 3 years, they were about to start raising a family, and one night ripped them both from the face of the earth. No matter what, I will not let that happen to their son. They named me his godfather, and it's about goddamn time I start acting like one. He is coming with me, and so is the girl. That's the end of the discussion, and I don't give a damn if you put a page out for me in the bingo book. In 3 days, I'm taking those kids out of this village of bad memories and shattered dreams. Danzo started the Nei Corps because he wanted to protect Konoha, whether or not people knew. Orochimaru began his experiments because he wanted the tragedies that happened in the Second and Third Wars, and the Kyuubi attack, to be relegated to history. Itachi worked his way through the ranks of our shinobi because he wanted to tie his clan more closely to the village, and stop a revolt before it began. He took a deep breath before continuing. Naruto wants to become Hokage so that he can protect the people who have shunned him, spit on him, cursed his name and attacked him since he was old enough to act for himself. I'm not going to let his good intentions become another failure, another horror story, another bitter stain in the pages of Konoha's history. This isn't as awkward as it would have been if Ero Sennin hadn't stopped by yesterday. Naruto observed. I wonder how that talk with Obaa-chan went. I still can't believe you live in the slums. Shouldn't you have, I don't know, a real apartment? Tayuya kept an even pace with him as they walked. What can I say, Tayuya-chan? Once you've been a gutter rat, you never really leave that life behind. Only difference is, a gutter rat gets kicked around by the bigger kids. All the bullies who beat me up as a kid. I'm a whole lot stronger than they are, now. When the name of the game is, survive or die, you learn how to be able to live no matter what happens. I know all about that. And, stop adding Chan to my name, you asshole. Maybe when you stop calling me piss for brains. Not gonna happen, piss for brains. Then it's not gonna happen, to Yuya-chan. Also, we're here. A ramen stand. Really? Oh, just watch me. He looked at her with the sort of smugness that only someone with full control over his own situation could muster. Ayame Oni-sama. Tsuki Jiji. One Uzumaki-sized combo platter. Those words coming out of your mouth make sense individually. What kind of ramen stand serves a platter? Like, of all gimmicks. The kind of ramen stand that serves Naruto, even on the occasions when he wasn't able to pay. A tall, brown-haired girl who Tayuya assumed to be Ayame, walked out and spoke. My father doesn't run a charity here, but he's always offered a free meal a day in the event that money is an issue. Besides, as often and as much as Naruto eats here, we could probably shut down and have enough money to last us another 10 or 12 years. Glad to see you and your lady friend are getting along so well. A newcomer, Kakashi, said to announce his arrival. And it's good to hear that he's supported you all that well, Tsuki-san, Ayame-chan. Nowhere else I'd rather go. Naruto laughed. Store-bought stuff is okay on missions, when I can't come in, but if I can get the best in the world, then I won't settle for less. Ah, Ayame-chan, I'll have pork and vegetables, if that's alright. You always fumble over it, Kakashi-san, like you don't get the same thing 3 times in a row before moving down to the next item on the menu. Am I really that predictable? As predictable as the tardiness that Naruto always tells me about. Naruto! Kakashi exclaimed in mock horror. How dare you say such slanderous things to besmirch my name in the mind of this beautiful young woman? Ah, yes, how dare I tell the truth? Shame on me. What will you get, Tayuya-chan? Beef sounds good. She would be lying if she said that she didn't feel uncomfortable around all the warmth that the three of them gave off, interacting with each other. The last time she'd known anything like that was so long ago, so deeply buried by memories of all that came after the laughter, that she didn't want to dig the feelings up. Was it all some joke that everybody was in on, except her? Was this hell, her punishment for dying in the forest against that pineapple-haired bastard and that goddamned fan-wielding bitch from Sunagakur? Was she in Orochimaru's lab, waiting for another dose of painkillers so that he could wake her up once he finished? Actually, she surmised, it would probably be worse to be on the White Snake's operating table. As the saying went, thank the gods for small graces, or some similar figure of speech. She could deal with this discomfort. Minutes later, she saw why they called it the Uzumaki size. 30 bulls arranged in a spiral that seemed to be based off of the red circle on the backs of all Konoha-issued flak jackets. That's goddamn huge. Don't tell me you're gonna, she began, but was interrupted. Like I said, Tayuya-chan. Just watch me. After her own bowl of beef ramen had arrived, he began eating. To her shock, amazement, and mild horror, the soup seemed to fly into his mouth of its own volition. Bowls larger than his head, taking up almost all of the counter, and within 15 minutes he had finished just as many bowls. Tayuya was eating slowly, partially in wonder and partially because his continued effort made her lose a little more of her hunger. Did the Kyuubi no Kitsune have a salt tooth that craved ramen noodles? Inside of the Shikifuin, the almighty Kurama had willed a tube into existence which poured ramen broth in a fountain to drink from. This was a perfectly reasonable thing to do, it told itself. Anybody else would have done exactly the same thing, it told itself. By all the dead gods of the lands that sunk beneath the waves, it loved ramen, it told itself. As much as it loved freedom. Maybe not, it told itself, but when it could only have one of those two choices at a time, well, it was easier to just enjoy the ramen while it could. The longer it cooperated with the Uzumaki boy, the more ramen it could have. Chakra for ramen. That boy was a fool, its chakra was almost limitless. There was no reason not to offer up some fraction of its power for the intoxicating taste of ramen. It told itself. You're insane. You have to be. No normal person could do that, let alone think it was a good idea to do that. So, the idea was to make you a little more comfortable around me, and the village. There's a saying, something about, those who share a meal together will be more familiar, or something like that. That sounds like something you came up with on your own. No, I really didn't. Besides, it worked, right? Maybe, if by more familiar, you mean that I am never, ever paying for you to eat somewhere. Goddamn. For her, the familiarity he talked about had come when she'd woken with him beside her. In Otogakure, in order to conserve building materials for each of Orochimaru's bases, ninjas hot bunked and slept with one's feet level to the other's head. She couldn't count the number of times when she'd woken up to her bunk mate transforming into the second stage of their curse seal, and been forced to kill them before they had gotten it into their head to kill her. Orochimaru hadn't been the kind of leader to inspire complacence or comfort in his ranks. Ah, that hit the spot. Thanks, Ayame Oni-sama. You're welcome, Naruto-kun. You know you're always welcome here. I know. His smile was so warm, It almost put Tayuya on edge. Reflexes died hard, and training as a kunoichi dictated that whenever a man smiled like that, no, she decided. She'd read his dossier before leaving Otogakure. If the way he acted was all a front that hid a beastly killer inside, then he played that game better than anyone else on Earth, no two ways about it. To that end, it was just easier to believe that he was being genuine at every second. Hell, even though she didn't want to die, she knew that she deserved it in the eyes of those who knew about her previous affiliation. They had to think like that, didn't they? Konoha's inner ruthlessness, and outer sweetness, were something of a known distinction. Iwa was predictable. Obedience to the Tsuchikage, and the chain of command, was paramount above all else. Suno was a nation of through-and-through mercenaries who weren't above switching sides if the reward turned out to be better, or abandoning a mission if all hope of completion was lost. The idea of dying for the sake of a mission didn't appeal to the desert dwellers. Kumogakure was the most hawkish and aggressive, and while Konoha's many great names gave it strength, Kumo was arguably the strongest of the 5 great nations. Kiri was something of an enigma, with a civil war raging wild between the tyrannical Yondaime Mizukage and the people who couldn't stand living under his regime any longer. It didn't seem like it would be stopping any time soon, either. Konoha, on the other hand, while they had come out the winner in all 3 of the Great Wars, the village was reportedly rank with corruption. Only in Konoha could 2 comrades be sent on opposing missions, sometimes even forced to fight one another to the death. Only Konoha was rumored to have a second, hidden Anbu Corps that, on paper, didn't exist. Shimura Danzo was as shady as they came, and prior to losing an arm in the Second War, he had been one of Konoha's most feared assassins as the Yomi no Shinobi. Only Konoha raised such a large populace on the ideas of peace and love and prosperity, that the will of fire would carry them through to a brighter day, only to sentence innocents to death through acts of aggression or willing negligence. And yet, right next to her, a boy whose hair outshone the sun was proving to her that maybe Konoha wasn't as terrible as the rumors and information she'd gathered over the years. Or, maybe, he was the one spark of light left in a village rotting from the inside out. "You'll be gone for 3 years?" Sakura questioned, her mouth making a small circle of worry and wonder. "Yeah, I know it's really sudden. Still, you never know, we might come back to visit." Team 7 was gathered at their original training ground, all together, for what would possibly be the last time in the next 3 years. "You're lucky, you moron. Getting to train with one of the Sanin, and you treat it so casually. Hey, you dumb bastard, we were the same way about Kakashi-sensei before we knew how strong he was." Sasuke paused, remembering that information. "God, remember how you introduced yourself. How much more emo could you have?" Now it was Naruto's turn to stop. "Wait. No, you did get more emo. Like, you graduated from emo to goth, minus the face paint and the eyeliner and stuff. Sakura, you should help him with that stuff. Naruto, I swear to God I will beat the shit out of you. You don't have much time left to try, asshole." Tayuya, once again the outsider in Naruto's personal life, hung back several feet. She knew that this wasn't her place. These were not her people. "Stop it, you two." Kakashi's words were in order, but his tone said that he wouldn't stop them unless it came to a death match. Given the explosion she'd heard before Jiraiya had found her broken body in the forest, Tayuya guessed that they had very nearly come to that point at least once before. She really didn't want to be there when a Jinchuriki, and someone who Orochimaru had believed to be strong enough to become his next host body, fought for keeps. "Anyway, Naruto, we're all here because we wanted to give you two some gifts before you left," Sakura announced. "Both of us?" Tayuya questioned. "Well, I don't know about them, but I got something for you. Sasuke-kun told me that you use a flute to cast genjutsu, but it broke when you got crushed. So I bought you a new one. It was gold, though that was just the outer polish and the inner coating. Still, after playing a couple of practice scales and adjusting the mouthpiece until it was in tune, it was a much better flute than the one she'd had previously. Sakura had been far too generous with this. I don't deserve this, I can't accept it. Why would you be so nice to me? I thought about that, too. You're technically still my enemy, but I believe in Naruto. He's a good judge of character, and he wouldn't stick around you if he didn't think you were a decent person who wouldn't betray us, whether or not the Hokage ordered it. Not that Sakura would ever mention that Naruto had been the one to give her most of the money for it. Insubordinate jackass, she said, looking to the blonde. I'll start respecting her when she starts acting her age. She thinks a genjutsu will convince everybody that she still has the looks of a woman in her mid-20s. Yeah, not even I'm that dumb. You mean to tell me, at 50, that she's never gotten any gray hairs or started? I'm gonna stop you right there. Kakashi said, interrupting his oldest student before he said words that Tsunade would likely have heard from the other side of the world. Sasuke, you're next. I know you don't have much of a skill repertoire, so I brought a scroll on how to perform the Gukyaku no Jutsu. It's a signature Uchiha technique, and whether or not you have an affinity for Kaden techniques, we all know you have more chakra than all of us combined. Once you get the speed of hand signing it down, you could probably blow the top off of a mountain with it. The raven-haired boy handed the scroll over, and Naruto pocketed it for later. Ah, that makes it my turn, doesn't it? Kakashi said, scratching the back of his head. Sasuke, Sakura, you can go home. Technically, my present isn't something that genin are allowed to see or hear. Though the pair looked disheartened, and Sasuke muttered something about favoritism toward the eldest, they were both gone with a fair amount of speed. What's so important that they couldn't know? Naruto asked. Technically, even though it directly concerns you, I could get executed for telling you. I don't know who's watching, so come here and I'll whisper. Naruto walked forward, and Kakashi leaned down to speak into the younger shinobi's ear. You remember how I told you that the names of my best friends are on that stone? Naruto gulped. Yeah, I remember. That had been a sobering revelation. Their names, Nohara Rin and Uchiha Obito, are the last on the list of casualties for the Third Great War. After that, the list of deaths from the Kyuubi attack begins. Your parents' names are right next to one another, in that section. There's only one Uzumaki. Kakashi held loyalty to the village, not to the chain of command. He held loyalty to the bonds he'd made with the people he'd fought beside, not whoever his superior officers were supposed to be. He had been the Sandaime Hokage's right-hand man and been a popular choice for Godime Hokage, which he might have accepted if not for the fact that he was the Junin sensei of Team 7. He had served in Danzo's Nei operations, though the seal on his tongue had long ago been erased. He had been a member of Anbu Team RO, nicknamed the Death Squad, for its historically high kill count. He held loyalty for his father's ideals, loyalty to the teammates he'd let down and been to the funerals of. Most of all, though, he was loyal to the spirit, the memory, and the legacy of his mentor. He had shadowed the man's wife all through her pregnancy, had been present at Naruto's birth. Whoever the masked man was, he was the one responsible for the deaths of Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina. If he was still alive, Kakashi had sworn, then he would kill that man himself. He'd had no intention of teaching anybody but Naruto, or whatever team he was placed on. The son of his sensei deserved nothing less. He hadn't been able to prevent Minato and Kushina's deaths, but he could do something to keep Naruto safe. Kakashi was stronger now than he'd been 15 years ago, and if Naruto was half the man that his father was, then it was a fair bet that his dreams of becoming Hokage might come to fruition not long after his return from this training trip. Itachi had confided in him, as a former teammate and as a man who held the same values, before fleeing the village. The Uchiha Saiyan had known that the infamous Isenjutsu no Meijin, the master of 1,000 arts, would possibly be the only other man in Konoha to understand. To both of the Sharingan wielders, one person had been worth more than their whole village. A purple-haired Anbu with a Neko mask was watching from the south, and she knew that he knew that she knew what he'd said. He also knew that she wouldn't report it to Tsunade, out of her own loyalty to him. The Slug Princess might have been the Hokage, with the rank-and-file ninja owing fealty to her and the civilians accepting her status, but there were many factions of power in the shadows of Konohagakure's streets. Danzo held the unquestioned obedience of his own 100-strong Nei forces, and the true elite of Konoha's forces saw Tsunade as little more than a bench warmer for someone who hadn't been gone from the village for over 2 decades. They would pay her lip service, but their ties had been to the Sandame's regime and those who had stayed loyal to it. The Uchiha had planned a revolt out of dissatisfaction with their status in the village. Tsunade's reign was proving unpopular with most of the shinobi who had been in the corps as recently as the Uchiha massacre. If she wasn't careful, then she would face her own revolution, but she didn't have her own Itachi to quell such a takeover. You should ask Jiraiya about them, when you get the chance. He taught your father, and your father taught me. Whatever you do, though, when he asks you how you know, just tell him that you know married couples have their names put next to each other. That would still be a dead giveaway, and potentially paint a target on his own back, but Kakashi knew Jiraiya. They both felt the same way about Naruto. They would both do whatever it took to keep the son of the Yondaime Hokage alive. Nothing else mattered. As Kakashi walked away, fading into a shunshin that made him vanish, he asked himself whether it might be worth putting his private war with Danzo on hold. Naruto took slow, heavy steps toward the stone in front of him, finding the Rin and Obito that his sensei had told him about. He continued scanning the plate for names of the fallen, until he found it. Double-checking the rest of the list, he saw that Kakashi had been right, there was only one Uzumaki on the list. Even on the list of names from the First, Second, and Third Great Wars, there were no other members of the Uzumaki family. Uzumaki Kushina, the engraving read. Uzumaki Kushina, his mother. He looked at the name underneath. Sarutobi Bawako. That wasn't right, obviously. She had been the wife of the Sandame, he remembered asking about her when he was younger. Seeing that the name underneath was obviously not right, he looked above it and stopped breathing. His eyes were wide as he sank to his knees in front of the memorial, but he couldn't look away from the name he saw. Namikaze Minato. The cold metal seemed to speak to him, and he finally turned away, only to look at the Hokage monument where every past leader of Konoha had their face carved into the mountainside. His eyes went red in a split second, fang teeth bared in a snarl. The world had a lot of explaining to do. Naruto. Night had fallen a long time ago. By Tayuya's nearest guess, it was close to midnight, and they would be leaving with Jiraiya in 36 hours. The area around them had been turned into a wasteland, trees bent at odd angles, the ground carved into at random intervals with varying depths, dying embers from the fires he'd begun as he mastered the Gukyaku no Jutsu that Sasuke had given him. Naruto. She said again. Stop it. Don't tell me what to do. He yelled. Most of his clothing burned away in his early failures to create the grand fireball. She could see the thin miasma coming off of him, and the fluctuation in his voice told her that he wasn't stable. Stop it, you goddamn piss brain. Just stop. Within seconds, he was right in front of her, and she could feel the corrupted chakra flowing through him. All it would take is 5 minutes for the Kyuubi's chakra to eat you alive. Don't get in my way. Do it, then, you bitch. Kill me like Konoha should have done when they found me. Kill me like Orochimaru will if I ever get captured. Kill me like Sasuke would have before you stopped him. I don't give a. Naruto's eyes narrowed, the malicious chakra beginning to draw itself to his stomach in a concentrated ball. Then, without warning, it disappeared as his eyes returned to their natural blue. Quote. I can't. You're too soft, Naruto. Only because you haven't given me a reason not to be, come on. Let's go home. He didn't let her get wise to the fact that she'd been using his real name, since she didn't seem to realize it herself. His answers would have to wait. Naruto woke to a heavy weight shifting on top of him. Blinking twice, he realized that it was actually Tayuya. Care to explain? I was cold, you're warm, she mumbled, now let me sleep. Whatever you say, Haim-sama. Should I worry about being used as a teddy bear every night? Yes. Trying his best to ignore the tangle of limbs around him, Naruto closed his eyes and drifted back to sleep. 2 hours later, he woke up again, but this time it was to the sound of Tayuya's new flute. The notes were gentle, flowing, and felt laced with a haunting sadness that he understood, but couldn't quite put his finger on. You play well, he said, making her stop in surprise. The startling effect of being caught in such a private moment was foreign to her. In Otogakure, she'd never been able to let down her guard. On the other hand, being around Naruto was enough to put her at ease, something else that she wasn't used to. His particular brand of personal gravity was unnerving, but not unwelcome. Sorry, I didn't mean to make you stop. Are you hungry? She nodded, then went back to playing. As he got out the flour, intent on making pancakes, he realized the name of the emotion that her song made him feel. Loneliness. It was something that he understood painfully well, and the night before had only confirmed it. Why had Kakashi not told him before? Why had Jiraiya said nothing? Had Tsunade not known? Why would the Sandaime have kept secrets from him? How was it that nobody, not even Naruto himself, had recognized the physical similarities between himself and his father? He needed to know the answers to those questions. He had 1 day left before they were going to leave Konoha for 3 years, and that meant he had to find out today. He would be going to the back room of the Shinobi Library after their brunch. Record of service, signature technique, goddamn, nothing here. I can't find anything either, shithead. I'm going as fast as she stopped, finding something. Hey, look at this. Uzumaki Kushina, Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Wife of the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato. Deceased. Kyuubi attack. Notable achievements. Defense of Konohagakure in the Third Great War, suppression of hostilities after the end of the war. Relations. Namikaze Minato, deceased, Kyuubi attack. Unnamed child, deceased, Kyuubi attack. According to the Akashic record of Konoha, he didn't exist. Uzumaki Naruto. Unknown parentage. Active duty. Notable achievements. Liberation of Nami no Kuni, defeat of the Aikibi Jinchuriki Sabaku no Gara. Specialty. Ninjutsu. Or maybe he did. Unknown parentage, my ass. Tayuya said. Maybe we can find out why in the legal section. Naruto groaned inwardly. He was an enemy of established law, not one of its proponents. Of course, after the Uchiha massacre, there hadn't been much of a law outside of the Sandaime's will. It would have been put in place after the Kyuubi attack. Naruto said. Looks like there's only one book that has anything that recent. Makes it easy. Tayuya said. 15 minutes later, they had found it. The Sandaime Hokage's mandate. That no citizen of the village, or any member of its shinobi forces, reveal to Uzumaki Naruto, or any of the younger generations to follow in the future, his parentage or Jinchuriki status, under pain of death. Citing fear for the newborn's life from the enemies of his parents in Iwagakure and Kumogakure, as well as wishing to avoid ignorant attacks from civilians upon his life or ostracization based upon Jinchuriki status, the mandate has been critically reviewed as poor judgment on the Sandame's part due to the latter two occurrences, frequency and a lack of control over his own strength. All of it, written plainly as day, in the one place he never would have gone until the revelation from last night had hit him. He was just trying to help me. Naruto said. He failed, but he was just trying to help. It didn't take a genius to know that he was saying it for his own benefit, trying to make himself believe it. You need to take your mind off of it. Tayuya said, taking the book and putting it back on the shelf. Not that you're interested, but I know some ways. If it has anything in relation to the girls I protect as part of my rent, then yeah, I'm not gonna bite. Tayuya mock pouted, walking behind Naruto and draping her arms across his chest. Are you sure? Yes. Besides, I know you're acting. Ah, you're no fun. Says every teenage girl with a drive to a guy that doesn't want what she's putting out. Can't be a drive if you haven't driven before, piss brain. Now follow me outside, and you're gonna think of something to do that'll take your mind off of this bullshit. Wordlessly, and gratefully, he followed after her. Walking into the weapon shop, Naruto felt an odd sense of comfort, probably because he knew that none of these weapons would be used against him. Oi, anyone home? Naruto-kun, came the voice of a girl Tayuya hadn't met yet. Hey, Tenten-chan, how's the old man? Out back, forging. You know how he is. Why are you here, and, who's she? Tayuya. The redhead announced herself. Technically, I'm a prisoner, but the Hokage decided to torture me by making this blonde ball of ass-kissing sunshine be my guard. Oh, I heard about that from Neji. You're the survivor. Yeah, well, since you haven't killed anyone yet, and Naruto-kun hasn't gone after you, I guess that means you're okay. I'll ask you again, though, Naruto-kun, why are you here? Geez, can't an old friend pay a visit? I swear, I'm not up to something. That's what you said last time, and then you painted the Hokage monument to make them all look like they were from Street Fighter. Although, I have to admit, that was funny. I never would have suspected that the Shadaime was secretly Bison. Yeah, there was a far-off look in Naruto's eyes, and then he stopped reliving the memory. Really, though, I came here for business. Think your pops can be convinced to let me make myself a special order that needs to be done before noon tomorrow? That depends. What are you looking to make? We've always been glad when you've come around. I know you know how to forge, but you ever wielded a falx, Ten-chan? Those curved swords you have to wield backwards. They're so impractical, you have to swing them like an axe. You ever see what it can do? No, I've never actually known anybody who's used one. Well, I remember hearing about it, and there was a man who used one on a C-rank mission that I went on. It can split through samurai armor, and the chainmail they have underneath. It can cut off any limb in one swing, and go all the way through someone. It breaks through swords with a strong enough swing. Basically, once you learn to use it, you don't really need much else. The claw is difficult to master, though. Tenten thought about it for a moment. Well, go ahead. With you and your clones, you'll probably get it done in half the time. Thanks. I'll come back tomorrow to pick it up and pay you. 10 clones appeared, rushing into the back room. Oi, Higurashi Otou-san. We're home. One clone said. Tenten smiled. Some days, I wish he'd picked you instead of me, you know. You don't deserve what happened to you. Nah, I'm glad it turned out like this. Tenten the crybaby turned into a woman I'd be scared to run into. Only because of you, she countered. You made me want to get stronger, and made it feel like everything was going to be okay. Now it was Naruto's turn to smile. I just do what I can. I care, maybe a little too much. Anyway, though, I thought that you and us and the rest of the Konoha 12 might be able to go out for dinner tonight. I swiped Arrow Sennin's checkbook, so the whole thing will be my treat. Golden dragons sound good enough. If you hadn't come in here with a girl, I would have thought you were hitting on me just now. Is this a bribe? Tenten raised an eyebrow. God, no, I'm no womanizer. You should remember that much about me, at least. Besides, don't you like Neji? I mean, I'd settle for Neji, sure. You're the one who had me first, though, Naruto Oni-chan. She joked. Right. Because that doesn't sound sketchy as. Naruto rolled his eyes. I've seen you. We were 4 and 5, I think, but still. I've seen you, and it was before you got all those scars you keep trying to hide. Honest to God, for a man who's such shit at genjutsu, you sure figured out how to make a really good one. It doesn't help that he keeps losing his top. Tayuya added. You'd think he actually wants them to be seen. Oh, no, we're not doing this. The two of you are not going to bond by mocking me. Actually, Oni-chan, that's exactly what we're going to do. Matter of fact, I think I'll upgrade you to that from piss for brains. Tayuya mocked him. Because his hair is yellow. You know what, Oni-chan, I take it back. I love this village. This girl gets me. As usual, for Naruto, things always seem to go from bad to worse. Never in his life would he have thought that being called a big brother could feel so demeaning, let alone that it felt like Tayuya was insulting him more by calling him that. There was no mercy in this world, or, rather, it was the fact that he always gave those mercies up. Quietly, as the two young women talked, he began to drift back into his memories. Naruto huddled closely to the smaller Tenten, his jacket large enough to fit both of them inside of it with tossed-out rags from a dumpster serving as a blanket. He was hungry. He hadn't eaten in 2 days, but Tenten was smaller and had needed the food more. For the last 2 days, he'd given the free bowls of ramen from Chuki and Ayame to Tenten instead of eating them himself. Even now, he was giving her the heat from his body so that she could stay warm on the cold winter night. She had cried herself to sleep again, and her tears had soaked through his shirt to wet his skin. They had found Jia Higarashi's smithy and shop a couple of days later, and Naruto had insisted that he take Tenten. I only have space for one, the man told him. The look in his eyes conveyed a deep sorrow that the two wouldn't be able to stay together. You would really let her have my home, and not yourself. Of course, when Tenten woke up, she had immediately run out to find her beloved, Oni-san, only for Naruto to show up and take her back to the man's forge. This is your home now, Ten-chan. He'll give you food and water every day. I promise you, one day, I'll see you in the Ninja Academy. Promise me you'll grow up strong, okay? Tenten was choking up, threatening to cry. Oh okay, Oni-san-en. Promise. Promise. I never go back on my word. Absent-mindedly, he sent out shadow clones to meet with the other members of the Konoha 12, a collection of genin who'd taken the Chunin exams together that Naruto had failed to graduate with, followed by his theft of the Forbidden Scroll. They would be there, he knew, except for Rock Lee. That boy was so battered, it was a miracle he'd survived. Naruto's personal theory was that the boy had some kind of god looking after him. Shithead, you really are just way too nice. Tenten had just finished telling Tayuya about how she'd managed to end up as the adopted daughter of a weaponsmith, just as Naruto had been remembering it. Can't help it, he grunted. Too hard not to be nice. You're a ninja, Naruto-kun, you're not supposed to be nice. Mission priorities, stuff like that, we learned it in school. I didn't learn shit in school. Why do you think I failed 3 times and got by on a fluke? You're telling me that they made you a genin anyway after you failed the 3rd time. Extenuating circumstances. I maybe, kind of, stole the forbidden scroll and learned a technique off of it. After that, it was execution or recruitment. You did what? Snuck into the Hokage mansion in the dead of night between patrol shifts, incapacitated the Hokage with a henge jutsu that I refused to reenact in present company, stole the forbidden scroll, fled into the forest surrounding Konoha, and managed to learn the Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu before using it to kill a traitor to the village. Piss brain, how the did you manage to do that? My test grades were shit, but my practical application of skills was second to none by the 3rd go around. Hell, I even knew all the answers to the test and I still got them wrong on purpose, just to piss off Iruka-sensei. You should have seen him. He could sneak around wearing bright orange, and reflective metal, in broad daylight. Nobody ever saw him if he didn't want to be seen. Tenten added. Even though I graduated first, I guess I'm still lagging behind you, Oni-chan. Suddenly, a thought hit Naruto. Tenten-chan. I just realized, if we're going to the Golden Dragon, Tayuya-chan needs a little something more than. He made a show of looking up and down in the redhead's direction. Let me guess, you want me to take her out and doll her up. Oh, no, that shit ain't me. Hell with it, I'll wait outside and y'all can enjoy the meal. Even if I promise to keep telling you embarrassing stories about the mighty piss brain Oni-chan. I take it back. I'm going, and I'm gonna tell everybody. You can't stop me, piss Oni. It never failed, Naruto surmised. Everything would always find a way to go from bad to worse. Yeah. I'll be gone for 3 years. So this is my big treat for you youngsters, alright. Naruto, you're only a year or 2 older than us. Sasuke pointed out. I don't care, you're all babies. Babies I helped raise in the classroom. That wasn't class for you, you big moron, it was nap time. Kiba said, and got the laugh he'd been looking for out of the others. The Inuzuka was brash and excitable, always trying to breathe a bigger life into a party. Or snack time. No matter how many bags of chips Iruka-sensei managed to take away, Naruto always had another one hidden. Choji said. Still do. Naruto declared, whipping out an unopened bag. Their camaraderie. Tayuya had forgotten what this felt like, forgotten how good it felt to be surrounded by people you could laugh and joke with. The other members of the Sound Four had been comrades, but none of them were friends. If Orochimaru had ordered it, then they would have fought to the death in an instant. Kimimaro had been even worse. She felt strange, even with just the light amount of makeup that she had on. Enough to make it look like you have none. Tenten had said. Her kimono was a rich purple, with a cloudy design sewn with navy blue. The long sleeves threw her off. So, Tayuya, I heard from a little bird that Naruto actually lives in a brothel. Is that true? Ino leaned forward, ever the gossip queen that she had always been. For all you know, he lives in my pants, Blondie. Do not. Naruto countered, but the redhead across from him shook her head. Nothing you say is gonna help, piss brain. Tayuya laughed. Whose word are they gonna take? The one whose reputation is on the line or the one who has no reason to lie? You dog. Kiba laughed, hand gripping the older boy's shoulder. You're a hero to us all. As the other young men crowded around Naruto, Tayuya mouthed a silent, we haven't done anything. Hinata looked over to the blonde boy, and missed the crucial, yet, that followed with an evil smirk in Naruto's direction. Sakura and Ino had the decency to blush. Tenten just smiled. She knew that, even if he acted like he wasn't enjoying himself, this was more than her older brother figure could have dreamed of happening to their lives. Oni-chan, me next. Please, she said in a sultry voice, silently apologizing to Neji. Iu, Tenten's a brocon. Ino laughed. Still, trying to keep that bro all to yourself, Tayuya, that's the real con, here. Oh, you should see him shirtless. Tayuya grinned. Once you get over just how big his muscles are, your eyes start to go down, and up, and down, and up. Oh my god, this isn't happening. Naruto hung his head in his hands. What? You don't want to give them a show now? That'd be the polite thing to do. Even Neji joined in, ribbing on Naruto's shyness. Maybe you could even call it fate. I hate you all. Naruto moaned. I love you guys, but I really, really hate you all. Ah, he said he loves us. Tenten smirked. Time to share that love, I guess. I changed my mind. Hinata goes next. Wah. Ah. Hinata gasped as the older girl leaned over, cupping her large bust and raising it to garner attention. I'm so dead. I'm, like, so far beyond dead that death has come to unsheath his scythe from inside of my ass. Naruto regretted having offered to do this. At least he wasn't paying for it. I mean, if you really want, I know a few things I can. No. He shot down to Yuya's proposal before it could start, and the laughter started all over again. It was a long night. The sword was cruelly curved, a two-handed behemoth that was designed to pierce through its targets with all the subtlety of a rhino. Though the boy's clones had helped, providing a mass of chakra that he'd manipulated to shape a ceiling array, the real work had begun after the chakra surge caused them to dissipate. That chakra, Higurashi had a difficult time with it. It was foul, corrosive, and violently powerful. The strength of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. It had blackened the metal he'd been using, a rough-hewn groove carved into the side to lower the overall weight of the blade. The dark chakra had given it a nearly melted look, but he could tell without testing it that it was stronger than any metal he'd ever worked before. It had no guard, only a simple leather-wrapped handle, but the blade's edge was on the inside of the curve. It was designed to be used like a scythe or grain thresher when attacking from the side, or similar to a mining pick when attacking from above. The lack of a guard also meant that it could rotate easily, protecting the blade from wearing down more quickly than necessary. It was not beautiful, the back of the weapon being jagged and sharp. It was, in truth, not really a sword. It was too big, too thick, too jagged and too curved. It was more like a slab of metal, one that had been broken off from the sharpest recession of a cave and wielded as a weapon because nothing else was available. This was not a weapon worthy of the samurai, or any ninja. This was a weapon worthy of Uzumaki Naruto. Finishing the seal that he'd carved into the pommel, he knew his work was done when the sword shrank to a more manageable size. It would respond to Naruto's chakra and return to its true size whenever the boy willed. Tenten, he called out, waiting for the girl to appear before speaking again. The boy's sword is done. Take it to him. But he said he'd come pick it up. Besides, what about payment? Higurashi smiled gently. Do you remember what I told you about my family? They all died in the Second War. Yes. However, our clan name, Jia, was taken from a phrase in a language that isn't spoken anymore, Jitu. Translated, it means, repayment of debt. The toll we owe to that boy is greater than we can ever repay. He gave me a daughter to raise and love, to carry on the Jia way. He gave up his chance of a home, of knowing warmth and rest and a full stomach, because he believed it was more important for you to have those things. Jitu has no scale with which to measure how to repay a debt that massive. If he wants a sword, he will have one. If he wants 10, 20, 50 swords, I will make them. He pays nothing. Tenten knew that Naruto wouldn't like that, the blonde always liked to square his debts, and in his eyes, this would put him in their debt. Well, she could always tell him that it could be erased by. No. Bad Tenten. She told herself. That train of thought wasn't one to be entertained. Hi, Otou-san. She took it and left. What do you mean? I pay nothing. The hell are you on about, woman? That's what Otou-san said. He still feels indebted to you for what you did for me. Please, just take it. I have to pay you something, at least. Let me. If you don't take it for free, I'm gonna be mad at you. Naruto sighed, and took it from her. In truth, this hadn't been what he'd expected at first glance, but after a few swings he understood. It's perfect. He smiled. Tell the old man I said thanks. Tenten grinned back, nodding before she disappeared in a shunshin to leave Naruto with Tayuya, standing near the east gate. Kakashi walked by, seemingly wandering around with his nose in the latest Ika Ika book. Naruto hadn't seen the man move, but he'd heard the crinkling of paper as Kakashi put a note in his jacket pocket. Have a nice trip, you too. He looked up from his book, and the single uncovered eye seemed to convey a smile. Use protection. Kakashi-sensei. How da mmph? MMT fo fee. Naruto's words were a garbled mess after Tayuya covered his mouth with one hand to stop him from causing a scene. One of the things you're gonna need to learn, piss for brains, is that you have absolutely zero situational awareness of how your actions will affect others. God, I'm surprised every other sentence you say doesn't make people think we're. She hissed. Not my fault. He retorted. You're the one who insisted on sleeping together. I heard that, Naruto. Kakashi said. You also need to work on volume. Still, bold, Tayuya-chan. If you were 10 years older, maybe we could have been friends. Oh, yeah, like that shitty smut is anything realistic. Why would I read shitty smut, and why would I want it to be realistic? Reading fiction is a fantasy, it's an escape from everyday life. Besides, I need to have some hobby besides making certain that I'm late. Speaking of which, I should probably show up to that meeting. No, the road of life is ever winding. I don't think I've arrived at that meeting yet. With that, the mirror ninja kept walking, head once again buried in his book. Quote. Believe it. They set out on the road just after high noon had struck, 3 ninja on the road to, well, only one of them knew. A fair number of well-wishers had come to see them off, including Tsunade and Shizune. Hey, Ero Sennin, what's the plan? We're heading straight east. 3 days until we reach our target. It's a surprise for you, kid. Don't say that. I hate surprises. This, from the best prankster since the great Jiraiya was a child. Oh, please. Like you could match me, Ero Sennin. I pantsed the Sandaime Hokage and made him streak through the village trying to get the pants back. I used that jutsu on him and stole the forbidden scroll. That's how I learned the Kage Bunshin. I tricked Tsunade into using Gamabunta's tongue as a towel when she got out of an onsen. Gross, I don't wanna think about Obaa-chan like that. Besides, I planted a stink bomb in Anbu headquarters and put an odorless laxative powder in the Junin lounge. Oh, yeah, well on top of that, I painted the Hokage monument and didn't get caught. Both of them said at once, shocked for a moment at having fallen in sync. Goddamn. Boys and their egos. Let's get a move on, huh? In a minute. I have a feeling we're being watched. I can't sense them, though. Within a second, Naruto had called forth a clone. We'll know in a second. Let's go on ahead anyway. Nodding, Jiraiya took off, followed by the 2 younger ninja. Once they were close to being out of eyesight, their watcher revealed himself. It's a bad habit to send a clone off with your teammates. What would they think if they knew, Uzumaki? Itachi. Why are you here? To thank you for saving my brother. I may not have come home in 7 years, but I still have plenty of ears and eyes in Konoha. Give me one reason why I should believe you. Kisame and our leader don't know I'm here. You may have pulled a page right out of my book, so to speak. Besides, you and we hold opposing beliefs. I sacrificed everything for my brother. You would give anything for the village. I'm interested in seeing whether or not you change to become like me. I can't, Kinslayer. There aren't any Uzumaki left, besides me. You're wrong, and you're missing my point. Itachi ignored the barbed words with the patience of a man waiting for a mosquito to land so that he could kill it. You and were cut from the same cloth. The only difference is in our loyalties. I abandoned a village that venerated me. I killed the clan that saw me as the greatest of them since Madara's birth. You remain loyal to the people who wish for your death, and you always choose the road of mercy for your enemies until there's no other path to take. One day, your loyalties will be tested, as mine were. That's when you will know whether you are bound by the orders you are given, or controlled by the bonds that you hold dear. Naruto stayed silent. You, the inheritor of the Sandames will, and I, the one who follows the Yondaime's path. I wonder, which of us will prove ourselves right in the end? Get out of here before I stop being nice. Naruto growled. Never, ever, compare yourself to that man. I may be allied with your enemies, and assigned against you, but rest assured. I am not your opponent. If you ever need me, the raven will answer your call for help. The man broke into a flock of the mentioned birds, one of whom flew itself right into Naruto's mouth and wormed its way inside of his stomach. For as long as the raven flies, there will always be someone to help you. Moments later, Naruto felt the dead weight of several genjutsu peel away from his senses to leave him standing with Jiraiya and Tayuya. What was that? I counted those layers. Whoever it was, they managed to drop 56 illusions at the same time. There's not many people who have that kind of skill. Tayuya offered. Come to think of it, the first one I thought of as the only man Orochimaru was afraid of. Uchiha Itachi. All three said at once. We'd better hurry, then. I don't know why he's letting us get away, maybe he just didn't want to be caught passing by. Naruto said. It was a good enough answer to get the other two moving. They made camp off of the side of the road on the first night. Okay, you two. Here's the idea. Over the next 3 years, I'm going to be training you in a lot of areas. No offense, Tayuya, but my focus will be on Naruto. However, when I'm not training him, I'd be more than happy to look at that seal on you and see if I can make progress towards removing it. Hell, depending on how well he trains, I might even get the kid to see if he can find something I miss. Anyway, though, my focuses will be taijutsu, fuinjutsu, and making sure you learn how to control the. Jiraiya stopped himself. Tayuya shook her head. I already know, Birdshit Sensei. It was in his file before we left Otogakure. Well, that makes it easy. No dancing around the subject, I guess. Anyway, Naruto, if you make good headway with those, then I'll start training you in the Toad Sage arts. Though Jiraiya didn't enjoy Tayuya's new nickname for him, at least he wasn't alone in having one. I've never heard of those. What can they do? In the Second War, deep in Kaminari no Kuni, Tsunade and Orochimaru and I were ambushed by 12 platoons. 48 on 3 seems a little bit excessive. Yeah, but we were the Sandame's students. So, anyway, what do those jackasses do? They cut off the top of a mountain and make it fall, then they leave because apparently that was good enough to finish the job. Admittedly, we were in a very small valley that we wouldn't have been able to outrun the damn thing, but I had Sage Mode. Using it, I was able to strengthen my body with so much chakra that I used my body as a shield for the other two before I shoved a Rasengan into it that was big enough to crunch most of it into dust. That sounds insane. Yeah, but it's not a good idea to do stuff like that, especially not in wartime. Had I not been using Sage Mode, I would have died, and then the other two would have suffocated to death under me because they weren't killed on impact. So, we're not going to train you in that, at all, until you've shown some huge improvements in physical strength, Fuinjutsu, and reigning in the Kyuubi's influence. So when do we start? Naruto asked. Once we reach where I'm taking you, because nobody ever goes there. We'll be safe. I think. At least, we should be safe. I don't know if there's any traps left waiting. That's reassuring. Tayuya said sarcastically. Well, unless you want to traipse around the elemental nations where we all have enemies, which we will, eventually, but hopefully it won't be until you two have managed to build your skills up to snuff. Sound good? Yeah, I guess. Okay. Get out your stuff then. I'll keep first wa. 3 of Naruto's clones appeared. We'll split the watch, Arrow Sennin. One of them said. You know, kid, that jutsu wasn't made to be abused. But here I am anyway. Jiraiya moved away, setting up a lean-to tent and sleeping bag. Hey, Naruto, you didn't bring a tent, did you? No, just a sleeping bag. Why? Take a while. Guess, piss brain. God damn it, he hissed. Calm the down, nothing we haven't done for the last 3 days. Yeah, but, nah, whatever. You go ahead, I gotta look at something for a second. He pulled the sleeping bag out of his pack, tossing the rolled up bundle to her. Suit yourself, asshole. After she'd rolled it out and laid down, with his clones patrolling the area, Naruto looked at the scrap of paper he'd been given earlier in the day. Though you'll be gone for 3 years, nobody in this village will forget you. So don't forget. When you come back, that's when your real training can begin. I'll be waiting. The words disappeared, likely a seal, and Naruto was left staring at a blank piece of paper. Without another word, he placed it back in his jacket's pocket, though he stripped from it before laying down next to Tayuya. In truth, he didn't care whether she was actually trying to seduce him, or if it was all one big joke to take up her spare time. He knew the reason why Tsunade had originally chosen to stick her to him. She was an outcast with no home, no one to trust, and nothing to lose. At one point in time, that had been Naruto's lot in life. Even through his years at the academy, he'd lived on the streets instead of the small apartment that the Sandaime had tried to give him. The top floor of that brothel had been his apartment for less than a year. He hadn't liked the apartment that he'd been given as a child. The walls had told him that he wasn't strong enough to live on his own, so others took pity on him. Having that apartment had told him that he should be afraid of the streets, of the people who walked them. All the while, his presence inside changed nothing about what went on in the outside. He'd made a difference for Tenten, so it stood to reason that he could make a difference for others as well, so he'd abandoned that apartment and gone back to his life as a street urchin. While it was true that most of the children with civilian parents hadn't associated with him, and that the ninja-born children were almost as reticent to be near him, Naruto had held the top dog position in the streets he'd roamed since he could walk. He'd been a leader and a brother to them all, and had made sure they all went to the academy when they were old enough. While it was true that most of them probably wouldn't go very far in their careers, the skills of a street rat were invaluable to the shinobi lifestyle. If Tayuya had ever had any kind of bonds like that, they had been severed when Orochimaru took her in, and Naruto doubted that anything good would have happened afterward. In the same way that Naruto's luck always went from bad to worse, anything involving the rogue white snake was certain to be bad news. The man had built a reputation for himself. As Tayuya shuffled around next to him, he closed his eyes. Whatever the next day would bring, he would face it head on. No matter what happened in the next 3 years, he would come out on top. He'd train like hell to make sure of it. Sleep came quickly, though he was still somewhat conscious of the arms that curled around him. Well, in the end, it didn't matter. If Jiraiya tried to say something about it, he could endure. Ero Sennin, it's been 3 days. Where the hell are you taking us? We're almost there. Give it about 5 more minutes, and you'll see why I said nobody will come bother us once we're there. Soon enough, the trees ended, and the trio arrived at a beach. Welcome to the eastern edge of Hai no Kuni, Jiraiya announced. A bridge extended out into the ocean, broken in more than one place, far enough that it didn't seem to end. Choppy waves, gray and fierce, rolled onto the sand beneath them. It was high tide, and the land was angry. Thunder rolled in the distance, before lightning split the water beneath. It's been like this since the end of the Second War, almost 40 years ago. My suspicion is that someone died with their hand on a barrier defense post, and that connection keeps chakra circulating even though the person who cast the jutsu is dead. A permanent defense against enemies, even in death and destruction. Where are we, though? I don't recognize this place. Tayuya said. Yeah, and I've never heard about anything like this being in Hai no Kuni. What's going on? I told you, welcome to the country's eastern edge. However, I left something else out. Welcome to the western edge of the ruins of Uzu no Kuni. Uzu no Kuni. That sounds like. Yes, and there's good reason for that. Uzu no Kuni is the nation that housed Uzushiogakure, which was wiped out near the end of the Second War by the combined efforts of Iwagakure, Kumogakure, and Kurigakure. There were no survivors. A ninja village that got taken off the map. Did they have powerful clans? Tayuya asked. There was only one in Uzushio, but they were like the Hyuga or Uchiha, big enough that inter-clan marriages weren't incestuous due to the sheer size of their clan, and they were larger than both of those groups combined. Spill the beans. Naruto said. The people that lived in Uzushio were the Uzumaki clan. Jiraiya said, a somber look in his eyes as Naruto locked onto him. Your mother's family. And my father. I'm not allowed to tell you. My sensei passed a law, years back, that said you were to be told on your 18th birthday or whenever a sitting Hokage sees fit. The law was broken when you were told about the Kyuubi, and I broke it right now, but I don't think you should know everything just yet. I didn't agree with the mandate, but I thought you deserved to know something about your heritage. I'm going to turn 18 before we're back in Konoha in 3 years. Why not just tell me now? Jiraiya grinned. There you go, always hungry for more, that's good. The other reason is, you're not strong enough to live outside of his shadow. Now, come on, let's get inside those ruins and through the perimeter defense before we manage to get fried. The older ninja took off, leaving Naruto and Tayuya behind. The pair shared a knowing look before running after him. That son of a bitch knows. Tayuya growled. Leave it be, besides, I already know the truth. Whether or not he tells me is grounds to know whether or not I can trust him. Itachi had been right about him, Naruto knew. He wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice his relationship with one person if it meant that he could protect many more. That was what it meant to be Hokage, wasn't it? The entire village would be his to lead, and he'd learned as a child that good leaders couldn't play favorites. That having been said, he knew that both the Sandaime and Godime Hokage had definitely made a favorite out of him. For one, it was because an out-of-control Jinchuriki would have been a catastrophe. For the other, it was because he reminded her of her dead brother, and husband. No, he decided as he sped up, quickly reaching and then outpacing Jiraiya. When he became Hokage, he wouldn't play favorites. He ignored the sun-weathered corpses of those who had been struck by the lightning around him, though the bolts never came near to touching him. In spite of the unsheathed sword on his back, he seemed to act the opposite of a lightning rod. Just as Jiraiya had said, a woman's corpse was attached to a chakra siphoning. Naruto didn't have a word for what it was. A dark blue ball, with streaks of white running through it where her hand was fixed, which stood atop a small stone stand. Behind her stood the shattered gates to Uzushiogakure, with the wall visibly cracked or missing pieces in several places. Just leave her there, Jiraiya said. The barrier that her chakra gives this land is enough that we won't be bothered until we're gone. With a heavy heart, looking at the first other Uzumaki he'd ever seen in the flesh, Naruto followed behind his mentor into the destroyed Uzushiogakure. What he saw horrified him. He knew it was an illusion. It had to be. Even so, he couldn't look away. Lightning came down with the rain, blood running to mix with water in the streets. Without warning, Doden techniques caused the surrounding buildings to begin crumbling. Children and civilians rushed about in the streets, kunai embedding themselves in the backs of those who sought to flee. Water rose up from outside the village walls, smashing into them and flowing over the top. Enemies from 3 nations overran the streets of Uzushiogakure, and the screams of the dying were louder than the thunder overhead. No survivors. An Iwagakure shinobi ordered. We'll show Konoha what happens when they attack our allies in Omegakure, but we'll do a better job. You will do no such thing. A man's voice declared, before a katana was shoved straight through the enemy's heart. The man's red hair rested in a mop, his bushy beard left untamed and wiry. Blood matted his clothing, and his Uzushiogakure headband was scratched all over. Ha! You think you can win, Uzukage? We outnumber your whole force 3-1. It's not about victory. It's about survival. The Uzukage's eyes narrowed, taking in his surroundings. Besides, I've already bought my wife enough time to have escaped. You've made me a very angry man, you know. I was going to be a father. If it's a boy, he'll be named Kaoru. If it's a girl, she'll be named Kushina. Now, face death. His movements were blurry, cutting through wave after wave of enemies even after he was the last Uzumaki standing. Nay, halt. A newcomer's voice rang out, and Shimura Danzo came into view before the gates with a group of his shadowy forces. Danzo, your arrival? How did you know we needed help? No, it doesn't matter. Please, help us win this fight. The Uzukage turned around, running off, and never saw the blade of vacuumed wind that took his head off. Nay, advance. The ruthless order left Danzo's lips, and the triple alliance between Iwa, Kumo and Kiri began to die en masse to the blades of Konoha's ghostly fighting force. When the rain cleared at last, all that remained were the rubble and bodies that littered the ground. No trace remained of the Uzukage's murderer, or even the bodies of his village's assailants. The genjutsu faded, and Naruto sank to his knees, with a shaking Tayuya beside him and Jiraiya hanging his head in front of them both. That was your maternal grandfather, Uzumaki Josuke. Father of Uzumaki Kushina, the Nadaime Uzukage. I was in Aim no Kuni at the time, training my own team. The wistful look in Jiraiya's eyes told the younger ninja that something had happened to that team. Naruto knew it was irrational to be attached to the dead who had been gone for years before his birth. Before his mother's birth. Even so, this was beyond painful. He had never known them, would never know them, but they were his family all the same and he had seen them slaughtered. He only had one question. Who is Danzo? A man who should have been eliminated a long time ago. Jiraiya's expression hardened. He was a teammate of my sensei, and the second choice for Sandaime Hokage. His ambition is limitless, second only to his twisted sense of loyalty to Konoha. He offers support to Tsunade, but only in vocal amounts, None of his Anbu's boots are ever seen on the ground, and they don't associate with the regular forces. Danzo is their leader, and until he becomes Hokage, they will not bow to the ruler of Konoha. Then it won't be an issue if I kill him. Vengeance for my grandfather, if nothing else. Danzo, that name rings a bell. Tayuya said, straightening her back. I think he was one of Orochimaru's partners in Fuinjutsu experiments and ninjutsu creation. Orochimaru is the one who gave him his replacement arm. Then it's not just an arm. Damn it. You're not the only one with a bone to pick against him, Naruto. It's rumored that Danzo was the one who actually ordered the Uchiha massacre, and if that's true, in addition to working with Orochimaru, Jiraiya started swearing. There's gonna be a lot of people who want his head on a platter. Naruto finished their collective thought process. But you can't go out in the open with it, otherwise, he'll run. So the best course of action is to just keep training. Tayuya said. Much as I hate it to admit it, she's right. So, time to start. By the time I'm through with you, you'll be too tired to think about revenge. Jiraiya was right, Naruto admitted to himself. Burying himself in thoughts of revenge would leave him vulnerable to the trap that Sasuke had fallen into. It hadn't mattered to him before, and it shouldn't matter after. If anything, he should be angrier at the ninja who'd done the most killing, but it was war. Kill your enemy, or die. Danzo's murder of his grandfather hadn't been war, it had been betrayal. That was something more despicable than most Nukenin would commit, with the notable exceptions of people like Orochimaru or Itachi, and even then. To arrive nearly too late to aid your ally in a time of war, only to murder them. That was sickeningly cruel, beyond anything Naruto had seen before. He would throw everything he had into the training. Maybe Jiraiya could earn his trust in ways besides learning about his parents. It had been 3 months since the trio had left Konoha. Naruto sat outside the gates of Uzushio, the small hill allowing him to look out over the sea with a slightly raised vantage point. After the first week, he'd started to occasionally come down and talk to the still warm corpse of the woman who'd died attached to her attack station. While Jiraiya oversaw his clones' work in achieving muscle memory, chakra control, and basic calligraphy, another team of clones was working on restoring the village from its destroyed state. Even though he didn't intend on living in the remnants of the past, he still felt a familial duty to avoid leaving the village in shambles. Once, a building's restoration had revealed a collection of scrolls. Jiraiya had surmised that it was the Uzukage's office building, similar to the Hokage Tower in Konoha. The discovery that he could retain the memories of his clones, as well as improve his ability slightly for every clone that trained, had been an immense step forward for him. So anyway, Shiki-chan, I'm getting better at Fuinjutsu. Has anyone ever told you that it's up to talk to dead people like they're here? Tayuya walked over to him, knowing where to find him in the event that he disappeared. I don't care. Besides, my sensei spends time every day standing at the memorial and talking to his teammates, probably my dad, too. If he does it, it can't be that bad. Piss brain, do you know how infamous Hatake Kakashi